Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jayaguru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to our revered speaker, His Grace Jayagurudeva Prabhu, and all glories to some of the Vaishnava devotees, and whoever may be watching this live on YouTube, or whoever may be watching this after the recording. We welcome each and everyone to today's SRIMAD Bhagavatam discourse. We have one of our beloved uncles, Jayagurudeva Prabhu, who is speaking to us today. And Prabhuji, we can't thank you enough for honoring our invitation. And since this is our first time meeting in the year 2025, we joyfully wish you a happy new year. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and then you take it over from here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. So, is everything okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, we may begin.
So I can begin?
Yes,
okay.
Prabhu.
Before I begin, I just wanted to ask what times, how many, what time do we have for the whole presentation? How many?
The time is up to you, the speaker. We are here for you.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yes. So, first of all, I would like to chant the mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottama Devi Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayat Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Agyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushu Tasmin Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh. So I have been requested to speak about the 29th verse in the 5th chapter of the 3rd canto. The third canto, has the title The Status Quo. And this 5th chapter is a description of the talks between Vidura and Maitra Rishi. So without delay, I will start with the verse. Mahat tattvad vikurbanat aham tattvam vyajayata karyakarana kartatma bhutendriya manomaya vaikarikastaijasascha tamasaschetyaham tridha. Synonyms. Mahat, the great, Tattvat, from the causal truth, Vikurvanat, being transformed, Aham, false ego, Tattvam, material truth, Vyajayata, became manifested, Karya, effects, Karana, cause, Kartre, doer, Atma, soul or source, Bhuta, material ingredients, Indriya, senses, Manah Maya, hovering on the mental plane, Vyaikarikaha, the mode of goodness, Tayajasaha, the mode of passion, Cha and Tamasaha, the mode of ignorance, Cha and Iti, thus, Aham, false ego, Tridha, 3 kinds. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in 3 phases, cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Purport. A pure living entity, in his original spiritual existence, is fully conscious of his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord. All souls who are situated in such pure consciousness are liberated, and therefore they eternally live in bliss and knowledge in the various Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. When the material creation is manifested, it is not meant for them. The eternally liberated souls are called Nityamuktas, and they have nothing to do with the material creation. The material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. This spirit of false lordship is called false ego. I read this sentence once again because it's the key sentence in this verse. This spirit of false lordship is called false ego. Yeah. It is manifested in three modes of material nature, and it exists in mental speculation only. Those who are in the mode of goodness think that each and every person is God, and thus they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Those who are puffed up by the mode of passion try to lord it over material nature in various ways. Some of them engage in altruistic activities as if they were agents appointed to do good to others by their mental speculative plans. Such men accept the standard ways of mundane altruism, but their plans are made on the basis of false ego. This false ego extends to the limit of becoming one with the Lord. The last class of egoistic conditioned souls, those in the mode of ignorance, or misguided by identification of the gross body with the self. Thus, all their activities are centered around the body only. All these persons are given the chance to play with false egoistic ideas, but at the same time, the Lord is kind enough to give them a chance to take help from scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, so that they may understand the science of Krishna and thus make their lives successful. The entire material creation, therefore, is meant for the falsely egoistic living entities hovering on the mental plane under different illusions in the modes of material nature. Once again, the verse. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So I just want to read again this extremely important definition, what the false ego actually is. And that is, in this verse, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, this spirit of false lordship is called false ego. So false lordship, false ego, right? Just to situate ourselves a little bit in the context of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we are now in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has the name, which is entitled by Srila Prabhupada, The Status Quo, right? So I've, for that purpose, looked up what the word status quo actually means. Hmm? I've looked up in various places, and I've ended up with the Massachusetts Institute for Technology's Latin phrase status quo, where the definition is given, and also I will read from other sources, specifically the Merriam-Webster dictionaries, Oxford and Collins Dictionary, which are interesting to see what it means, the word status quo. It is Latin. It is a Latin word. Status quo, literally the state in which, is a Latin phrase that is commonly used to indicate the same situation without changes. For example, if you are a truck driver, I think we have a truck driver in our in our meeting usually, isn't it? So, if you're a truck driver, it may be your interests to maintain the status quo regarding the introduction of self-driving cars. So, the Merriam-Webster definition is also very good. I like it. The status quo means the situation which is given and is not changed. Another definition, which is actually very, very nice, Collins Dictionary. So the Collins Dictionary, the status quo is the state of affairs that exists at a particular time, especially in contrast to a different possible state of affairs, right? That is the definition from the dictionary also. And third is also a very nice definition, and that is that it's a situation which actually doesn't change. That is the status quo. So we are living in this material world in a status quo. And that is the subject matter of the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, how do we come to this understanding? What is the status quo? What is the situation actually? So there we have to see what happened before the this special encounter. So we know that in the previous chapter, uh, in the fourth chapter of this work, it is described how Vidura met Uddhava, and he heard from Uddhava about the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, and upon that description of the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, of course, Vidura was very aggrieved, but there's one situation which is extremely important to understand, and that is that Vidura informed, Uddhava informed Vidura that Krishna, before he left, he gave his instructions for Vidura, what he should do. And Uddhava explained to Vidura that he should go to Haridwar to meet Maitreya Rishi and receive instructions about the status quo. That's why this whole canto is called status quo. So the whole third canto actually is an account of the discussions between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura at this holy place of Haridwar, which is still there. Today you can go still to Haridwar. It's a holy place where the Ganges flows. And it is stated that Maitreya Rishi was sitting there in a secluded place. You can imagine Maitreya Rishi was a good friend of Vyasadeva, and he was the most learned sage in those days. Maitreya Rishi is an ordinary soul. It's interesting to note the whole concept of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is many different discussions between a teacher and a student, right? The first discussion is found in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there we hear Sutta Goswami and and Shaunaka Rishi. Sutta Goswami is instructing, and Shaunaka Rishi is listening. And then, starting with the second canto, we enter into the discussion, the key discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the main discussion between the teacher, who is Sukadeva Goswami, and his pupil, Parikshit Maharaj. And then, of course, we come into other discussions between Narada Muni and Vyasadev, where Narada Muni instructs Vyasadev about the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we have discussions between Narada Muni and Brahma. And we had discussions in the previous chapters also of the third canto between Uddhava and Vidura. And now we are entering within this fifth chapter, we're entering into this incredibly powerful philosophical discussion between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi. In that discussion, Maitreya Rishi, mainly at the middle of this fifth chapter, is describing the various aspects of the creation, and then on he starts discussing in the chapters from starting, I think, the seventh or eighth chapter of the third canto. He starts to describe these wonderful pastimes of Varaha avatar and the birth of the two demons, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, after being cursed by the four Kumaras. And then we hear this wonderful discussion, and that is the most scientific aspect in the third canto, the discussions between Kapila Deva and his mother Devahuti. So these are very philosophical. This whole third canto is an extremely important philosophical part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I would just like to read in the fourth chapter, 34th verse, going back in the previous chapter, the verse number 34 in chapter 4 of the third canto. The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply mental disturbance. And the purport was wonderful. The transcendental forms and pastimes of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, are difficult subject matters for those who are not devotees to understand. The Lord never reveals himself to persons like jnanis and yogis. And there are others who, because of their envying the Lord, and this is a powerful statement, because of their envying the Lord from the bottom of their hearts, are classified amongst the beasts. And for such envious beasts, the subject matter of the Lord's appearance and disappearance is simply a mental disturbance. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 15th verse, the miscreants who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of Godhead at any stage due to asurika bhava, or spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. The transcendental body expansions manifested by the Lord for his pastimes in the mortal world, and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are difficult subject matters. And those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The more they discuss the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord in the asuric spirit, the more they enter into the darkest regions of hell, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, verse 20. Anyone who is against the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less a beastly creature, as confirmed in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. A very powerful verse, isn't it? Yeah. Anyhow, there's another verse I would like to just cite in the previous chapter. No, I think this is already in the fifth chapter, verse number 7, fifth chapter, number 7. We are now reading actually verse 29 from this chapter, but I would go a little back. I guess you already have discussed this verse with another lecturer. So here here speaks Vidura. He's starting the whole chapter, this fifth chapter, is Vidura asking Maitreya questions. He doesn't ask questions like a asuric bhava, which is described in the previous, but as a real devotee, which means that Maitreya is very happy to answer such questions, as we will see in this verse today and also further. You may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice born, the cows, and the demigods. Our minds are never satiated completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. Purport. The Lord appears in this universe in different incarnations, like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, and Nisringa, and he manifests his different transcendental activities for the welfare of the twice born, the cows, and the demigods. The Lord is directly concerned with the twice born or civilized men. And now, the definition of a civilized man is very nicely given in this purport. A civilized man is one who has taken his birth twice, which means that 99.9% of all of us are not civilized men, although we hold a PhD or we hold a title and we consider ourselves very civilized because we can fly in airplanes and rockets, huh? And we can have nice fancy cars, and we've created the atom bomb, and etc., etc. So here, I like this definition Prabhupada gave. A civilized man is one who has taken his birth twice. A living entity takes birth in this mundane world due to the union of male and female. A human being is born due to union of the father and mother. But a civilized human being has another birth by contact with a spiritual master who becomes the actual father. The father and mother of the material body are so only in one birth. And in the next birth, the father and mother may be a different couple. But the bona fide spiritual master, as the representative of the Lord, is the eternal Father, because the spiritual master has the responsibility to lead the disciple to spiritual salvation, or the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, a civilized man must be twice born. Otherwise, he is no more than the lower animals. The cow is the most important animal for developing the human body to perfection. The body can be maintained by any kind of foodstuff, but cow's milk is particularly essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain so that one can understand the intricacies of transcendental knowledge. A civilized man is expected to live on foodstuffs comprising fruits, vegetables, grains, sugar, and milk. The bull helps in the agricultural process of producing grain, etc., and thus, in one sense, the bull is the father of humankind, whereas the cow is the mother, for she supplies milk to the human society. A civilized man is therefore expected to give all protection to the bulls and cows. The demigods, or the living entities who live in the higher planets, are far superior to human beings. Since they have better arrangements for living conditions, they live far more luxuriously than human beings. Yet, they are all devotees of the Lord. The Lord incarnates in different forms, such as those of a fish, a tortoise, a hog, and a combined lion and man, just to give protection to civilized man, the cow and demigods, who are directly responsible for the regulative life of progressive self-realization. The whole system of material creation is planned so that the conditioned souls may have the opportunity for self-realization. One who takes advantage of such an arrangement is called a demigod or civilized man. The cow is meant to help maintain such a high standard of living. The Lord's pastime for the protection of the twice-born civilized men, the cows and the demigods, are all transcendental. A human being is inclined to hear good narrations and stories, and therefore there are so many books, magazines, and newspapers on the market to satisfy the interests of the developed soul. But the pleasure in such literature after it is read once becomes stale, and people do not take any interest in reading such literature repeatedly. In fact, newspapers are read for less than an hour and then thrown away in the dustbin as rubbish. The case is similar with all other mundane literature, but the beauty of transcendental literatures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is that they never become old. They have been read in the world by civilized men for the last 5,000 years, and they have never become old. They are ever fresh to the learned scholars and devotees, and even by daily repetition of the verses of Bhagavad Gita and SRIMAD Bhagavatam, there is no satiation for devotees like Vidura. Vidura might have heard the pastimes of the Lord many, many times before he met Maitreya, but still he wanted the same narrations to be repeated because he was never satiated by them. That is the transcendental nature of Lord's glorious pastimes. Right on. Now, another one is also very nice. Yeah, that's, I think, number 4. Yeah, that's where we have it. This one here. Uh-huh. Yeah. So to come back to our today's verse, which is describing the Mahat Tattva, or the great causal truth. This is the very start, actually, of the narrations given by Maitreya Rishi. Now, you can imagine what kind of a personality is Maitreya Rishi. He's not any professor who gives classes at the university and then goes home and enjoys his steak, his wine, and watches television. Maitreya Rishi is a sage of a quite different caliber, right? This is the wonderful aspect of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You could never get, as you stated before, you never get tired of it. You can read it over and over and over because the persons who are speaking, asking questions and answering these questions, explaining different aspects of the absolute truth, these are liberated souls. There's no conditioned soul appearing in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Amalam Puranam, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the Bhagavatam. Actually, Srila Prabhupada's life work was the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and his bringing the Srimad Bhagavatam to the Western world was a great feat of mercy, because we were living in complete ignorance before the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita as it is appeared in our languages, be it the original English version, which La Prabhupada personally translated and gave his purports to, or the various translations, Spanish, Italian, French, Swahili. I guess you also have some of these. And our language here in Europe, so many different languages. And this transcendental literature is extremely important. So Mahatattva is described here the great cause of truth. And here Maitreya Rishi explains how it transforms into false ego, which is manifested in 3 phases: cause, effect, and the doer, right? So there is the cause, the effect, and the doer. These are the 3 aspects or 3 phases that will be explained furthermore in this 5th chapter of the 3rd canto, very elaborately, and I will leave it for the next lectures to elaborate on that. But what is important to understand is from the very start, Prabhupada writes in the purport that a pure living entity in his original spiritual existence is fully conscious of his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord. All souls who are situated in such pure consciousness are liberated, and therefore they eternally live in bliss and knowledge in the various Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. And he writes further on, when the material creation is manifest, it is not meant for them, which means that there are 2 kinds of living entities, something which we've never learned at school. We think that there's only living entities who are subjected to the misery of material existence: birth, old age, disease, and death. These are the 4 aspects of material existence. We are born in this material world, and we become diseased, we become old, and finally we'll have to die. But Prabhupada writes here that all souls who are situated in such pure consciousness are liberated, and therefore they eternally live in bliss and knowledge in the various Vaikuntha planets. Yeah. When the material creation is manifested, it is not meant for them. We should understand that we are in this material world, as you see on the cover jacket of the first canto of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Prabhupada's version, and also on the English version, you can see the spiritual sky. I don't know if you have seen this picture. Most of the devotees have seen this picture. And you see these effulgent Vaikuntha planets, like various suns in a blue background on our first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And there in the corner, there is a small region, and that is the material sky, which is dark. And there you see the whole manifestation of this material world starting, which is described further in this 5th chapter with the Purusha avatars, Karanodakashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and finally Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, which are the 3 Vishnus, Purusha avatars, from which this whole material creation starts to manifest. But that's just a small section of the ever-expanding transcendental realm of the Supreme Lord. You can just imagine how great this Supreme Personality of Godhead is, that he can expand himself unlimitedly and at the same time be present in his own abode, Goloka. It's incredible. So souls which are situated in pure consciousness, meaning that the eternal servitor of the Lord, consciousness, constitutional position. Sometimes we are confronted with, I would call it, Sahajya devotees, who consider themselves very close to Lord Krishna and want to understand his loving affairs with his friends, the gopis, and they bask in this all kind of Sahajya conceptions, taking things cheaply. Prabhupada said the definition of Sahajyism. But many times they don't understand, as is stated here in this purport, that the constitutional position is an eternal servitor of the Lord. This servitor mentality of the Lord is the subsistence of all other rasas. We know that there is Shantaras, Dasyaras, then there's Sakhyaras, then there are Vatsalyaras, and finally there's the Madhurya Ras. And there are these Sahaja people who want to enter into Madhurya Ras like without this servitorship mentality, without considering themselves the servitor of the Lord. The service is the sustaining in all the rasas, except, of course, the Shanta ras, which is a neutral ras. But as soon as there is the next ras, which is Dasya ras, it is contained. Dasya ras is a part of the Sakya ras, is the sustenance, is what grows from Dasya ras, is all the other rasas. All the other rasas are based on the servitorship. So this is the real pure consciousness. Prabhupada writes that all souls who are situated in such pure consciousness, servitor. That was something which I really personally most appreciated about my beloved spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, that he was constantly serving the Lord. And he was inspiring all of us, his disciples, to serve the Lord like him. He never wanted to enjoy any rasas like so many sahajiyas who you can find everywhere, also mainly in the various parts of Vrindavan Dham. There are so many people who just want to taste the rasa of love, and they explain it and they cry, etc., etc. But the real rasa is the servitorship, eternal servitor of the Lord. So In the spiritual world, everyone is in this consciousness, and therefore they live in bliss and knowledge in the various Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. The eternal liberated souls are called Nitya Muktas, and they have nothing to do with the material creation. And now, because we're starting at the point where Maitreya starts to explain the material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. Many times these sahajas, they don't want to accept, although they externally manifest themselves or try to show off that they are liberated souls, but in fact they're not liberated souls because they do not accept the subordination under the Supreme Lord. Rather, they are parading themselves or presenting themselves as being on the same level as the Supreme Lord, that they are, and the Mayavadis, they're the worst, because they think they are the Supreme Lord. This spirit of false lordship is called false ego. Now, this is something so important to understand. The false lordship is called false ego. As soon as we accept that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Master, Ekala Ishvar Krishna, as described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Arasa Britya, and all others are his servants, then we are actually slowly but surely understanding what is the real ego. Now, ego isn't something which is to be dealt on the psychological level. I've just for fun, I have searched, ego in the Freud's psychology. Yeah. So in Freud's psychology, he is considering the ego to be a sense organ for perception of both external and internal stimuli. He thought that the ego is synonymous with consciousness and contrasted it with the repressed unconscious, right? So this is the idea of Freud, which is completely, I would say, materialistic. But in our verse here today, we see that the false ego is the false lordship, whereas the real ego is eternal. These psychologists, psychiatrists, philosophers, they all on the hovering, and is stated also here in this verse that they are on the mental plane. All such activities are on the mental plane, right? Cause, effect, and doer. This false ego, which is the first expansion of the Mahatattva. It's a very important verse. So those who are in the mode of goodness think that each and every person is God, and thus they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. It's interesting that Srila Prabhupada writes that these people who are in the mode of goodness, those who are in the mode of goodness, think that each and every person is God. So we shouldn't forget that the impersonalists, right, that they are many times very renounced people. Even we can call the Mayavadis transcendentalists to a certain extent, but from Lord Chaitanya's point of view, they are offenders. They are aparadhis. But in general, if one gets to the mode of goodness, then one thinks that every person is God. And Prabhupada specifically addresses here the impersonalists. And they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So we can see a good example of this to illustrate this statement by Srila Prabhupada is Lord Chaitanya approaching Prakashananda Saraswati. Now, Prakashananda Saraswati, he was a leader of the Mayavadis in Varanasi. And we know that they were always laughing, the disciples of Prakashananda, they were always laughing at Lord Chaitanya and his devotees who were dancing and chanting like in ecstasy of devotion to Lord Krishna by chanting and glorifying Krishna. They were feeling great ecstasy. So the disciples of Prakashananda Saraswati, they considered this sentimental, and they laughed at pure devotees. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu played the role of a pure devotee. Of course, we know that he's Krishna, appearing in this Kali Yuga as his devotee. So they went to Prakashananda Saraswati and they laughed at him. And there was Lord Chaitanya's disciples, Tapan Mishra, who came to Lord Chaitanya and they said, "Oh, my Lord, why these people are laughing and mocking you, chanting? They said that you are sentimentalist." And Lord Chaitanya wasn't very interested to discuss with them. But at a certain point, because his devotees, Lord Chaitanya is very merciful and very kind to his devotees, very, very kind to his devotees. That's his nature. Uh, uh, so he went and discussed with Prakashananda Saraswati, and he showed Prakashananda Saraswati his transcendental effulgence, and thus Prakashananda Saraswati understood that there is something more than just the mode of goodness, in which definitely Prakashananda Saraswati and all his disciples are very much in the mode of goodness. You can find such yogis and transcendentalists in India, everywhere. Very renounced people get up early, early in the morning, and they chant all the kind of mantras, have make fire sacrifices, recite the Vedas, etc., etc. But their conclusion is that every person is God, which is a false conclusion. And then Prabhupada further writes, those who are puffed up by the mode of passion try to lord it over material nature in various ways. Some of them engage in altruistic activities as if they were agents appointed to do good to others by their mental speculative plans. Now, this is an interesting point that Prabhupada makes here in the purport. Why? I remember Prabhupada was discussing with one gentleman in Geneva, it's recorded, who was, I think he was employee at the CERN, European Agency for Nuclear Research. And he was trying to argument and trying to convince Srila Prabhupada that altruistic activities are very good. And Srila Prabhupada was kind of like, not very happy with this. And he said, well, what can you do for others? And altruism is simply bogus, right? Nowadays, of course, altruism is very much highly appreciated. Mainly, you can see this during the great natural disasters, droughts, and floods and earthquakes. And also in Africa, you can see this when there's these huge droughts, as you have many times in various parts of Africa. Then there is altruistic activities. The United Nations brings trucks full of food for the people to feed them, and they consider the people who are in the mode of passion. They engage sometimes, Prabhupada writes, in altruistic activities as if they were agents appointed to do good to others by their mental speculative plans. Such men accept the standard ways of mundane altruism, but their plans are made on the basis of false ego, right? Again, false lordship is called false ego. Yeah? They think, oh, we'll feed the poor, we feed the suffering, and this is the best activities that we can do. Serving God, what is this nonsense? We should serve the poor. That's the main thing. So Prabhupada kind of like spoke in this connection with this gentleman at the conversation, and this gentleman just couldn't understand how is it possible that Prabhupada just told him, what can you do for the people? What can you do? It is a fact. For us who are completely attached to the material body, of course, altruism is important and we find it very nice. But for a liberated soul like Srila Prabhupada, altruism didn't mean much. What can you do? These people, even if you help them for a certain time, feed them, dress them, protect them, etc., at a certain point they'll become old, diseased, and will die. So what can you do for the people? So therefore, Prabhupada was in this case, not very much in favor of altruistic activities. Whereas nowadays, altruism is considered the highest activity, welfare activity that a human being can do. But that is in the mode of passion. Those who are puffed up by the mode of passion try to lord it over material nature in various ways. And Prabhupada describes this. One of the ways is altruistic activities. This false ego extends to the limit of becoming one with the Lord. That's described in the previous also mode of goodness. The last class of egoistic conditioned souls, those in the mode of ignorance, are misguided by identification of the gross body with the self. Thus, all their activities are centered around the body only. That's in the mode of ignorance. Those in the mode of ignorance. So we are considering the body only. That is the mode of ignorance. So that means that 99.9% of people nowadays, they're in the mode of ignorance. Self-realization has absolutely no relevance for them. When we go out distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, when we go out chanting Hare Krishna on the streets, when we ask people to give a donation and take one of Prabhupada's books, like the Bhagavad Gita as it is, 99.9% they don't understand what is this. What do you want to? What do you want? You want money. Many people think that. I just seen today one of our devotees distributing books on the streets here, and I was just watching, and one man just came by, and this devotee asked him if he would like to take a book, and the man said, "No, no, 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 I don't want any book." And then he took out his wallet and gave him a little donation because he thought the devotee wants money. That's all. He thought that the devotee is simply after money. Here's another beggar, he's begging from me. So, okay, so here, I'll give you a little donation. And then this devotee was saying, "Well, but why don't you take a book?" He said, "Oh, no, no, I don't want any book." I've seen this many times on Sankirtan, that people who are a little like charitable, altruistic, that they will say, "Okay, these devotees, they're poor guys, they don't have no money, and they're begging here on the street and selling their books. Okay, I don't want that book. I'm not interested because I am the body," right? Whereas the essence of Srila Prabhupada's books is that we are not the body. So Prabhupada concludes in this purport that all these persons are given the chance to play with false egoistic ideas, but at the same time, the Lord is kind enough to give them a chance to take help from scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and SRIMAD Bhagavatam, so that they may understand the science of Krishna and thus make their lives successful. Right now, that is the Vaishnava is after making people successful. Trying to make the people understand what is the success in life. And here it said that they may understand the science of Krishna. Understand mainly the basics of the science of Krishna. And that is, we are not the body. We are the soul within the body. And we are engrossed, which is explained here in this verse, in various levels of false ego, which is based on the false assumption that we are not servants of God. I remember Srila Prabhupada was in New York in 1976, and there was a memorable discussion between Srila Prabhupada and a reporter from the Associated Press. The reporter was a very, very nice, courteous, and funny person, and he kind of liked Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was also happy to explain to him. So this man was from the Associated Press, a reporter. He was saying, "Oh, you are people who are escaping. People think that you are sort of like escaping the society, and you are not contributing actively, constructively to the world." Some people claim like this. And Srila Prabhupada answered this gentleman saying they are misunderstanding And then this reporter asked Prabhupada, what do you mean by misunderstanding? And Prabhupada said, because we are interested, we are on the, we are working, we are working on the spiritual platform. And of course, the reporter was a funny guy. He understood we are walking, like walking on the spiritual platform. So there was back and forth this discussion, walking or working. Oh, working on spiritual platform. The reporter said, "Oh, now I understand." And what is that spiritual platform? And then Srila Prabhupada spent half an hour to explain to this man that there's a difference between the driver of the car and the car. And this man, this reporter, he was unable to understand for a long time, and he was arguing in a very, very funny way with Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada was sticking to the point that there is the driver of the car and there is the car itself. And the car itself has no value whatsoever. Similarly, Prabhupada said the body has no value whatsoever. The car, when it's standing somewhere on the street, has no purpose. Is it? Isn't it a fact? You have so many cars in Africa and here, everywhere. We have cars which are standing somewhere. They have no purpose. The only purpose is when the driver gets into the car, then the car has some purpose. And when the car is broken up, old, you throw it away, right? And this reporter was so funny. He said he understood the point, and he said, "Oh, the body is nothing." Aha, I see. So it's like fertilizer. Like the body is just fertilizer, which is a fact, you know. What is this body for? What will happen with this body? It will become a fertilizer. Once we are dead, either we are buried in the ground, the body, excuse me, is buried in the ground, which means that it will decompose by being eaten up by all kind of worms. Anything will remain is just the bones and the skull. Nothing else will remain from the body. Or if the body is cremated, it will just remain ashes, right? And or that's also practiced by some tribes and in the Himalayas, I think also in Africa sometimes, that they just throw the body to be eaten up by vultures, and then the vulture eats the dead body and passes it as stool. So, so we become either ashes or we become worms, fertilizer for the soil, or third, we can become also stool from some vulture. So this reporter, at a certain point, he understood that what we are speaking about, the spirit, and that was the whole purpose of this long discussion between Srila Prabhupada and this reporter, that we are not the body, we are the driver of the car, we are not the car. And he said also, Prabhupada, in this connection, which was very nice, he explained that just like you give petrol to the car, you don't give petrol to the driver. The driver doesn't need petrol. The driver needs some other things, right? So, and similarly, he explained that the soul, the spirit, needs other things than what the body needs. So, therefore, you can see nowadays everywhere people are unhappy because if they constantly just identify themselves with the material body, and they forget the soul, which is the proprietor and the driver in the car, the body, the soul becomes like unhappy, no doubt. And they can have anything they want, but they're unhappy. So Prabhupada was very much eager to give people scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam so that they may understand the science of Krishna and thus make their lives successful. The entire material creation, therefore, is meant for the falsely egoistic living entities hovering on the mental plane under different illusions in the modes of material nature, right? So I would think that this would be more or less the uh, talk that I would like to give on this verse. I don't think that I have anything else to say. Of course, there's many other things to be said, but I think the purport is a very interesting purport. So anyhow, just what I would like to say, maybe I have here something that would be interesting. That's 5th chapter, 40th verse. I would just like to read this verse with the purport, which is as a conclusion to my talk. And here, the demigods, because Maitreya at the end of this chapter gives the words to the demigods who were created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to glorify the Supreme Lord. And the demigods say, O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the 3 kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, the way of devotional service is neither sentimental nor mundane. It is the path of reality by which the living entity can attain the transcendental happiness of being freed from the 3 kinds of material miseries. Miseries arising from the body and mind, from other living entities, and from natural disturbances. Everyone who is conditioned by material existence, whether he be a man or beast or demigod or bird, must suffer from adhyatmika, body or mental pains, adhibhautika pains, those offered by living creatures, and adhidhaivika pains, those due to supernatural disturbances. His happiness is nothing but a hard struggle to get free from the miseries of conditional life. But there is only one way he can be rescued, and that is by accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The argument that unless one has proper knowledge, one cannot get freed from material miseries is undoubtedly true. But because the lotus feet of the Lord are full of transcendental knowledge, acceptance of his lotus feet completes that necessity. We have already discussed this point in the 1st canto, in the 2nd chapter, verse 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahaitukam. There is no want of knowledge in the devotional service of Vasudeva, the Personality of Godhead. He, the Lord, personally takes charge of dissipating the darkness of ignorance from the heart of a devotee. He confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yenamam upayanti te. Empirical philosophical speculation cannot give one relief from the 3-fold miseries of material existence. Simply to endeavor for knowledge without devoting oneself to the Lord is a waste of valuable time. Okay, Hare Krishna. That's about all.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Jayagurudeva Prabhu. Thank you. Such a very wonderful and in-depth discussion of Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or to share your reflections. But Prabhuji, you said that we are not, as devotees, practicing devotees, we are not so much concerned about altruism. And you gave the example of the AP representative, Associated Press representative, who interviewed Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is saying that there is the car itself and then the driver. That the car itself is not as important without the driver. Now, I believe that devotees are supposed to be the number one altruistic people, in the sense that devotees understand that everybody is suffering, because lots of people have shown spirituality. They've shown Krishna. And therefore, devotees may give Krishna consciousness without considering their own profit or adoration. And that is one of the definitions and the description of altruism. Altruism means that you are more concerned about others, even much more than yourself. But when people consider helping the body without the soul, then it becomes more or less helpless. But there is nothing wrong in my judgment. So I'm asking this or stating this so you may correct me. In my judgment, there is nothing wrong for a devotee to help others, whether materially, socially, financially, as long as they are also giving those people Krishna consciousness. But if it's just about the body or anything without Krishna consciousness, then there is no much benefit. What do you say to this?
Well, my point is in this connection is that devotees are naturally friends of everyone. There is a verse in the third canto, I think it's also there by Kapila Muni, which describes the devotees of the Lord who are the friends of all living. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. They are suhrit. Titikshava karunika. Suhridam sarvadehinam. Ajata satrava shanta. Sarva sadhu bhushana. That the devotee is not altruistic in the sense of materialistic, but he is suhrit. Suhrit means that he's a friend of everyone. Suhridam, not only a friend, but he is closest friend of everyone. That's the sadhu. The nature of a devotee, sadhu, is that he is suhridam, just like Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he is also suhrid. So the devotees, they're in the same category. They're also suhridam, means that they're friends. And I will just give you an example which is quite illustrative for this. There was in Australia, there was a Ratha Yatra festival, and Mataji's in the temple, they had a temple somewhere in the part of Sydney. They were sewing a huge canopy for Jagannath's cart, right? Because, you know, the Jagannath cart has a nice canopy, right? So what happened was that the house just next to the temple, not too far, suddenly caught fire. There was a fire in the house. And the people who were standing in that house at the windows and yelling, help, 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 right? And the devotees, they took this canopy which they were sewing for Jagannath's cart, and they went underneath the windows, and the other people who were also there, they stretched this canopy, right? They stretched it and made it into a saving, like, you know, and the people, they jumped into this canopy, and thus they were saved from injury, from death, practically, you know. So the devotees naturally are suhrid, friend. By the way, the newspapers in Sydney, they described this in a very nice way, you know. They said, oh, the Hare Krishna devotees, they're such nice people. They help these people to, and they just used the canopy which was for Jagannath. Now, if they would be smarter Brahmins and not friends of everyone, they would say, oh, no, 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 we cannot do this. This is canopy for Lord Jagannath, Lord Jagannath's cart. We cannot use it to save these people. No, let them fall. Anyhow, you know, we're not altruists. So the people will be, you know, maybe jumping from those windows and killing themselves or burning alive, you know. But the devotees naturally felt, Suhridam Sarvadehinam, Ajata Shatrava. Ajata Shatrava is also a nice definition of a devotee. He's an enemy has never been born to him. Ajata Shatru. No enemies. Even if somebody plays the role of an enemy, a true devotee doesn't see this person as an enemy, right? Ajata Shatrava Shanta, Sadhava Sarvabhushana. And these are the decorations of a devotee, right? So a devotee may not be altruistic in the mundane. Prabhupada writes here, such men accept the standard ways of mundane altruism. Mundane altruism. For example, we have also here a devotee in the Czech Republic and also in England, Parashuram Prabhu, and we have Lokasharanga Prabhu, who have in the last year and the past years also before went to different places where there was natural catastrophes and war. In Ukraine there was a war, and they went to I think Morocco, to Turkey, various places, and what they did was that they cooked prasadam because these people who didn't have houses, or they were in the middle of a war zone like in Ukraine. Can't imagine, this is tragedies when these people get into war zones or they're struck by some natural catastrophe, adi daivika klesha. So they went there and they cooked prasadam and they gave people food which was offered to Krishna, prasadam. So we distribute prasadam. That's also a way of being suhrid, being close to the people. Devotees are not like impersonalists who try to retire somewhere in the Himalayas and meditate for themselves. You can even see sometimes devotees become so impersonal that they say, "Oh, I'm going to Vrindavan. I'm going to sit there in Radha Kund and chant 64 rounds a day." This is not very nice. This doesn't show that the person is concerned. Srila Prabhupada is the best example in this connection that, at the age of 70, he came to America to teach people that they're not the body, and make them and give them prasadam also. Prabhupada's prasadam, that was the best thing that he did for us. You can't imagine how important prasadam was in those days and still is today, And Prabhupada cooked such delicious prasadam that he made people understand Krishna consciousness through prasadam mainly, and chanting Hare Krishna, of course, because, a devotee is suhrid, which means he's not mundane altruist in the sense of, trying to save the body, but trying to be helpful to all the living entities. Suhridam sarvadehinam, to all living entities, not only men and women and children and old people, but also animals. That's why Prabhupada writes also so nicely about cows. This is something which from the very start, when I came to Krishna consciousness, I appreciated so much that Prabhupada was the only person who was defending the cows, all the Christians and the Muslims, and they all kill animals, and they don't have any thought, that the animals could suffer also when they are being dragged to the slaughterhouse. And Srila Prabhupada was very compassionate to all animals, particularly to the cows. Is that all right?
Oh, Prabhuji, very, very, very satisfactory. Oftentimes when questions are asked, the person asking the question may have some clue to what he's asking about and wants to kind of get some sort of verification to what he thinks about the question. But the question I asked and the answer you gave is so, so, so beautiful in the sense that I was hoping that you may speak along the very way you spoke, in the sense that there is this group in the United States and other parts of the world, the Latter-day Saints of Christ, which was founded in the US. And these people have particularly helped ISKCON in so many ways, especially in the US here, when there have been few times that ISKCON temple had some tragedies, and these people were there to help. And the reason they were there to help is because they understand that these people are worshiping God, and they need the physical problems that they are dealing with in order to have a better mindset to worship God. There is this common saying that a hungry man is an angry man. So if we ourselves as Hare Krishna devotees, oftentimes we say that, like the example you gave about the devotees using the Lord Jagannath's canopy to help quench the fire, is so beautiful and very laudable. Because oftentimes, lots of devotees would say, this is mundane. These are material people. What do you need to do to help them? But I do not think that is what Srila Prabhupada expected of us, and that is not what the scriptures expect of us.
Actually, I would just like to add that
Very beautiful. Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada was very, very happy that what the devotees did, and he praised the devotees. He said, these are real devotees. A true devotee, he cannot tolerate other people's suffering, you know.
Yeah.
Even if it's, I would say, suffering of hunger, of droughts, etc., etc. It's not that the devotee is a mundane altruist in the sense, but he is naturally, it's his nature. It's not something, you cannot separate this nature of a devotee, you know, this is a real devotee, you know. Whereas impersonalists, Mayavadis, and there are many impersonalists who dress themselves like devotees, put tilak on their brow, wear kuntimala, you know, but they're not real devotees, you know. Prabhupada many times had lamented on the fact that even in our movement, even in our ISKCON movement, there are so many people who are not devotees really, but they pretend to be devotees, you know. But real devotees, of course, they'll help wherever they can help. Not from the mundane point of view, but by the nature. It's like it's their natural instinct, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, and it's very interesting and satisfying also to hear this from you, knowing that this is what we are expected to be doing as devotees. So, dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, realizations, please, we may do that before we bring this class to a close. Today is Friday, the last day of the week.
Yeah, today is Ekadasi. You have also Ekadasi in Africa?
Oh, Ekadashi was yesterday.
Oh.
No, it's today in Africa.
We have
Oh, really?
today.
Okay. It was yesterday here in the States.
Oh, you're in the States. I see. But here we have it today, Ekadasi.
In Czech? Oh, okay.
In Czech, yeah.
Okay. All right, Govinda Prabhu, please, you may go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranams. All glories to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to the Assembly devotees. Yeah, Prabhu, I would like you to give your advice to a devotees from ISKCON. You know, Narayan Maharaj disciples. I know Narayan Maharaj himself speak Bhagavad Gita. And some of Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON disciples have joined him. And if you listen to what they say about Krishna, the scriptures and everything, it's more or less the same as we speak. And so I would like you to say something about devotees from Srila Prabhupada listening to devotees with Narayana Maharaj. Is there any danger? Is there any problem listening to them?
I honestly have to admit that I didn't have the experience, really, of listening to devotees who were initiated or who were followers of Srila Narayan Swami Maharaj. I personally met Srila Narayan Maharaj in 2000 something in Vrindavan, and I was impressed, very much impressed by his transcendental realizations. And also, I have a god sister who is his disciple, Shyamarani. She was Yadurani before, and I read her memoir, a very nice memoir. I appreciate very much her realizations and her deep, deep Krishna consciousness and her love for Srila Prabhupada and also for Srila Narayan Maharaj. I very much appreciated her memoir. I read it, very nice, very beautiful. And who can say that that Shyamarani or Yadurani hasn't been blessed by both these great Vaishnava souls, by her eternal spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and her eternal spiritual guide, Srila Narayan Maharaj. Very nice. So a devotee is a devotee. I have no bias. He can be from any camp. He can be from Narayan Swami's camp or Sridhar Maharaj Swami camp. If he's a devotee, he's a devotee, and you immediately feel a devotee is a devotee. And I don't make any distinctions. Personally, I don't make any distinction between devotees. But of course, if a devotee, so-called devotee, criticizes another devotee, that's not good. That's not good. If in the name of I'm a disciple of this guru and I can criticize your guru and your disciple, the disciples of your guru, that's not nice. Janananda Prabhu, who is for me one of the first and foremost devotees at the start of ISKCON, he's the one who started to build the Jagannath carts in America. You know, Prabhupada liked him so much, and all the devotees loved Janananda. He was such a pure soul, you know. It's said that he was the first modern ISKCON Vaishnava saint in the Western world. Yeah. So anyhow, he said once a very nice thing, that we shouldn't criticize devotees and find faults in devotees, because what do you get when you find faults in a devotee? You just get a handful of faults. That's such a nice statement. That's anything you get from criticizing, finding faults in other devotees is just like having, just handful. What do you gain by finding faults in other devotees? We shouldn't look for faults. You can always find faults in devotees, just like Shishupal found faults in Krishna. So you can always find faults in devotees. But why should we find faults in devotees? This is not good. So we should be always being like, a bee. A bee, he looks for nectar. So similarly, a real devotee, he only looks for the good qualities of a other person, be a devotee, even in karmis, just the good qualities. And he neglects, he's not interested in the bad things or the negative things, because Prabhupada said that's the mentality of a pamar. Pamar means these flies, have plenty of these flies in Africa, I think, who sit on the dirty place on a corpse and enjoy the corpse, on meat, So we shouldn't be like these kind of flies. We should be like bees, always looking for the nectar and the good qualities of people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Is that all right?
Yes. Thank you.
You should concentrate on your driving.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Actually, Prabhuji asked of you even before you came here, because you came a little late today. So, but Prabhuji was looking for you.
Oh, he did ask of me. Oh, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Prabhuji.
So,
Thank you. I have some family meeting, so
Jai
yes.
Jai,
celebrate
Hare
late. Forgive
Krishna.
me. Hare
No, you
Krishna.
do this. Everything's okay. Thank you. Happy to see you again. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah, happy to see you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Jai.
Prabhuji, so we have one hand up. I hope you may be able to take his question or comment. Bhakta Hassan, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please can I accept my respectful obeisances? All glory to Srila Prabhupada and all glory to the wonderful assembly devotees. Thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, I have this question I want to ask concerning the last answers you have given. So this incident happened to me, I think 3 years ago in Spain. What happened was that there was this Swami who came to Spain, and I have to take some devotees to him. He was doing the program, so some of them spent a night in my house. So the next day, I have to take these devotees to the Swami where he was residing. And when I get there, he told the other devotees to give me Doti to well, and I put it on. So before I know, initiation was going on. So when this happened, I was very confused. So I contacted my teacher, and he said, "This is wrong. This is not right." So I contacted my Guru Maharaj, and he said, "No, I have to return his japa to him because this is not right." And this Swami happens to be from Gaudiya Math. So, and I know it was not the right thing to do because he said he has to do express initiation, and because of I was so ignorant, I didn't want to offend him or what. He did everything. I was not be able to say anything at the process. So Maharaj, from this time in my heart, I feel that he has deceived me. So this has become a scar in my heart that he deceived me. So what your last answer is that you don't have to criticize devotees, but this is something which has happened to me in my heart. I've been criticizing that he has deceived me because that was not the right thing to do. So how do I go about this? This is my answer, Maharaj. If you can help me.
Yeah, of course. Number one principle, forgive, forgive, forgive. If you cannot forgive, then you don't get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is forgiving, and we are disciples of, we are devotees of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, specifically of Lord Nityananda, and he forgives again and again. And of course, if you feel hurt that you were, I would say, misled into activities which was wrong, that's okay, but you can forgive also. Just forgive that person, because if you do not forgive, you will carry this grudge for your whole life. That's not good. You just forgive him. That was just a mistake. He did a mistake, and you forgive him for that mistake. And you should also understand that we are very, very weak, and sometimes we become misled by so many people. So, but forgive him.
Yes, Maharaj. I have forgiven him. I don't have any grudge against him. But according to my Guru Maharaj, he is doing this to a lot of ISKCON devotees. So I don't have any grudge against him, but every time I see him or it comes to my mind, I think that it's a cheat. Please,
So
do you understand what I'm trying to say? I don't have any grudge against him. Maybe he want to have a devotees for himself to help them in Krishna consciousness, but he didn't do it in the right way.
I understand.
But I don't have any grudge against him.
Okay, so don't associate with him. That's all.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that what he did is wrong. So
Of course, yeah.
in my mind, I still feel that he did something wrong, but I don't
Yeah.
have anything against him. So for me to think this way, is it an offense?
No, it's not an offense. You just, as I said, the main thing is to forgive. Forgive is
Okay.
human. To forgive is absolutely necessary, compulsory. You know, when we go on Sankirtan for selling Prabhupada's books, sometimes we meet people who are so envious and so offensive and so demoniac, you know. But we just leave the place. We just go away. We don't associate with these people, and we forgive them. We don't carry the grudge in our hearts, and we just go to the next person.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
We have to forgive, you know. There's so many problems in this world.
Yes. No, in my heart, I have forgiven him. I don't
Very
have
good.
any
Very good, very
grudge
good.
against him at
But
all.
you still carry some grudge. I can feel it.
No, honestly, I don't know. You know more better than me, but I think that to do this because anyway, because I was very fortunate to return his japa to him, because the very minute he was leaving was where I will be able to give his japa to him, because if I did not give his japa to him, there is no way for me to see him again, and I have to be by force his disciple. So I was thinking that how can you do this to people?
Yeah,
So,
it's terrible. It's a pity. There are so many, I would say, problems with people who pretend to be advanced Vaishnavas, but in their heart they're simply materialistic. You know, this is a fact.
Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Maharaj.
And Prabhuji, thank you for the answer. One quick thing I may want to add to the beautiful answers given is that Srila Prabhupada created this house called ISKCON. And if anyone is intelligent enough to build a house, he would like to maintain the house. So Srila Prabhupada would like to maintain ISKCON. So those of us who are within ISKCON may listen to anybody anywhere if that is going to enhance our own dedication to Srila Prabhupada. But if we're going to listen to whomever and it's going to cause the weakening of our hearts, weakening of our faith in Srila Prabhupada, then there is no need. Hare Krishna. Madhavan Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your lecture. All glory to until little speak, all glory to the Prabhupada and the assembly of devotees. Just what I want to ask, within this purpose, it was stated that the material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. So, where were these rebellious souls before they came into material creation? Where were they? But I know they are spiritual entities.
I must admit that I didn't quite understand your question.
Okay, let me come again. From this purpose.
Maybe you have a microphone, maybe closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me.
You are speaking about the purport of today's verse?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe inside the purport, it was explained that the material creation
is meant for rebellious souls.
Rebellious souls. So where were these rebellious souls before they were cast into the material creation? That's my question. Where were they?
I see. The material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, there's Ashradadhana Purusha Dhanmatartha Parantapa Napraptamam Avartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmane. Mrityu Samsara Vartmane, which means that those who don't have faith, Ashradadhana Purusha, those who have no faith, rebellious souls basically, that they are cast by me and they have to repeat Mrityu Samsara Vartmane. Samsara means the wheel of reincarnation. And we are, since time immemorial, in this wheel, samsara, mrityu samsara vartmane. We are in this wheel of death, mrityu samsara. We have to repeat birth after birth, and we die, and then again we get another birth, and we die since time immemorial, right? So basically, anyone who's in this material world, he is a rebellious soul, and he has been spending, Prabhupada writes, since time immemorial. But if we accept the subordination under the Supreme Lord, as is stated there, because rebellious souls, Prabhupada writes, are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. So this whole Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada writes it several times in his purports in the Bhagavatam, the whole purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement is to, and Lord Chaitanya's mission, is to make us subordinate to the Supreme Lord, to surrender to the Supreme Lord's will. And then we end this samsara, this mrityu samsara vartmana, this rebellious mentality will stop once we become aware that we have to become subordinate to the Lord, right? So the souls, rebellious souls, they were here since, Prabhupada writes it, since time immemorial we are here in this material. We cannot trace how many births we have spent here in this material world, birth after birth, being subject to disease, old age, and death. So we're all in this material world, we are all rebellious souls, and we have to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. That's the whole purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement.
Thank you very much.
Is that all right?
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
It's okay. Thank you.
Hare
Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all devotees, and I believe we may bring this class to a close today. And we can't thank you enough, Jayagurudev Prabhu, for this wonderful Krishna Katha shared with us today.
You are all great devotees, and therefore you're sincere, and by your sincerity you make me sincere.
Prabhuji, we are just grateful that we could have one of our beloved uncles in your humble self coming to us and share your love and wisdom with us every now and then. And we can't thank you enough for that, but honestly and sincerely, we appreciate you so much as a beloved uncle. And dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace Jayagurudev Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare.
Mancha Kalpataribhascha Kripacha Patitana
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to His Grace Jayagurudev Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.